right, it's 4 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. This is the May 2nd meeting of the Public Property Naming Committee. Mr. Johnson, will you call the roll?
Ben Ream,
Present.
Ramsey Cohen, Shayna Love, Aaron Streeter,
Here.
Jack Neely, Sam Brown, Gloria Deathridge, Sam Maynard,
Here.
Deidre Harper, Brian Berry,
Here.
Jonathan Ball, Andrea Kupfer,
Here.
Jim Johnson,
Here.
Karen McKeon, and Councilman Smith.
Here. All right. We have a quorum. Mr. Johnson, along with the agenda, sent out the February 22nd meetings. Do I hear a motion to approve those?
Approve.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion about the February minutes? If not, please, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have minutes approved from February. Okay, on today's agenda, we have 2 items to vote on and 1 discussion. So we'll speak to the first item, request number A. Mr. Johnson, would you read that request?
4A is a request to add the name Coach John Majors Bridge to the bridge carrying Topside Road over Alcoa Highway.
All right, I believe we have a speaker. Would you like to come speak about the application? You want to come forward to the front?
Hello.
Hello, could you state your name and address for the record?
Sure. It's Mary and Don Horton, 4013 Topside Road.
Thank you for being here. We've received your application. Is there any other details you want to add about the application?
No, has everyone seen it, I assume? Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. You want to just briefly explain it? Can't
Sure.
hurt.
I mean, John was our neighbor, and we went to church with him, and we became his friend probably in the last 3 years of his life. So a lot of people have known him forever and ever. We became real close at the end, and so we were taking him to church, taking him to the ball games, and Dawn did a road trip with him, and that's another story. But it seems obvious, kind of everyone I've talked to about that this makes sense. He lived out there twice. He lived out there when he coached, and then he moved out there back when he came back in town after he coached out of town. And he actually moved right across the street from where he lived before. So that's his neighborhood, that's his home, that's, that part makes sense, and just what he does for the community, what he does for young men coming to this town to play football. And if you've ever been at a game and seen him or walked to a game with him like we did, he'll stop for anyone, for a picture and an autograph. And first thing he says is, "Well, tell me what you are. Tell me what you're about. Tell me where you're from." And he just was that kind of a big, giant soul. And I think it's really cool where that bridge is situated, right on the Knox County line, that as people come in, recruits or whomever, as people come into Knoxville, that's kind of the first thing you would see there is that John Majors Bridge. It seems to me, a lot of neighbors, a lot of people have talked about this, they all think it's a great idea, but the big question is, and this man asked me on the way in here, why John and not Johnny? And my husband can explain that
Sure.
better than I can.
So I know we have a road on campus named Johnny Majors Boulevard or something. Isn't there a road? Anyway, John became friends with us, and he was always Johnny to me. I grew up here, went to college when he came back to town, and I remember it was Johnny Comes Marching Home. He was Johnny. I think he was nicknamed that by Ben Bird when he came here to play college football. And he told me that his mother had a conversation with Ben Bird once, and she said, "Young man, I named him John, not Johnny, and he is John Majors." And once I was talking to him as well, and I said, "Johnny, do this, do that." And he said, "Wait, my friends call me John." So I think we're all friends of John Majors. And I think the football player was Johnny Majors, but I think the coach, the neighbor, the citizen was John Majors.
The life coach.
That's
But
it?
if that's what we're quibbling about, we don't really care. We just want Coach Majors up there somehow, so.
Okay.
We just wanted to explain the history on the John part.
Thank you for doing that. All right, thank you. With that, we'll open the floor to the members of the committee. Just a bit of context for this. This is a new bridge. Obviously, it's a state-built bridge, but they will be handing over rights to the city, which is why it's before this committee. So the city will own the bridge, will no longer be state property when that's conveyed. So that's why this body has authority over this suggestion, and I'll open the floor now for any discussion.
When does the handover actually take place?
That is a timeline I dare not guess at. I've already been proven wrong on it a couple times, so
The bridge is
sometime,
It's open.
it's open now, but the infrastructure around it is not fully ready. So it can be named now. It doesn't have to be open or complete. The overall project doesn't have to be complete for this body to name it. Good question.
Just one question. You say the majority of the community agree with this, and so I didn't know if there was some kind, I just see two of you, so I'm just wondering when you say the community, is the majority of the community? Because I know a lot of coaches have lived out there in the past.
Oh, are there? I don't know about that.
Well, I know.
Well, it's a little late, but I did forward. You want to tell them about the letter that you had sent in?
Oh, did they get
Earlier today, it was sent, but we all live busy lives. So go ahead and express the letter that you had
So
sent.
I have a letter, and I have copies if you'd like to see it, but it's from our board. We have a small board. I was the president of it for about 3 years, and now Rob McLeod is the president. And he brought it up at the board meeting, and the board members wrote a letter to Tommy stating that they believed that was the desire of the community.
Would you go ahead and pass that letter out? Would you mind?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'd love to know which other coaches have lived down there. I wasn't aware of that, but we're from Memphis, so.
Well, Coach Majors was definitely a student of history. I saw him a few times randomly at the history centers.
Oh, he was, and sadly, they're about to auction off his estate, his house down the road from us, and that's all we want, is one of his history books. He's got a whole library of them.
I do have a question. How are other overpasses and bridges named? Like, I see them named all over the state. How does that usually happen?
There are all kinds of names used, so there's not one consistent way, but bridge or pass or overpass, all of those are used.
No, I mean, who is choosing the names? Like, where does the name of the bridge come from?
If it's a state highway, then the state has that authority, but if it's not or will be conveyed to the city, it'll be handled by whatever municipality it's in. All right, does everybody have a copy of that? Thank you for bringing that.
I only made about 4 copies.
Okay. Well, is there any other discussion? All right.
Yeah, I'd like to mention that John or Johnny Majors is not just, if there are other coaches associated with one place or another, I think he's a special case for a couple of things. One is that he had national stature in Pittsburgh, not here. His greatest moment of glory was in Pittsburgh, but he settled here in Knoxville after some years of hit and miss at the UT Vols here. But he made this his home, his lifelong home. So he wasn't one of the fly-by-night Vol coaches we've all forgotten the names of. But also he really did care about the community in an unusual way, and was. You saw him at the History Center. I saw him just walking by. He didn't always have an entourage. You know, it wasn't just on the golf course that you saw him. You saw him walking alone down Gay Street, and you could stop and talk to him. And that I've never known anybody in UT sports like that. he was just a nice guy. He had a community meeting you would have in Beard now and then, and invite speakers and stuff. He was a very interesting guy and a community leader. And he and his wife, I remember seeing them dancing at an opera one time on stage. They were part of the opera in Knoxville Opera, so they were supporters of the opera and other things in town. So I think he is a special case. He and his family, which includes his brother who was killed in a train wreck in West Knoxville, and everybody. It's a well-known family and certainly a deserving honoree, I think.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Last call for discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll follow up with instructions on
Thank
next
you for
steps.
sharing that part. Thank you.
All right, item 4B, Mr. Johnson.
4B is a request to add the honorary street name Big John Tate Corner to Lakeside Street at its northern intersection with Magnolia Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. It's a bigger than life athlete and coach day here at the naming committee. We have a speaker for this as well. Would you like to come up and say a few words?
Good afternoon. Gwen McKenzie, 411 Carter Road, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37914. And I also have someone with me that I'm going to allow to speak as well, but I want to thank you all for your consideration today. Big John Tate, as you've read the information there, and hopefully you've seen a documentary that this young man who's standing with me, who's a graduate of Austin East High School, did on Big John Tate. It's been about 2 years ago? About a year and a half ago, and the title of the documentary is The Forgotten Hero, who Big John Tate actually is a forgotten hero here in Knoxville, Tennessee. While he's not a native of Knoxville, he actually helped put Knoxville on the map as it relates to boxing, bringing the World Heavyweight Championship here to Knoxville, Tennessee, which he called home. Lakeside Avenue is behind Golden Gloves Arena, which is where he trained and where he boxed, with some local folks who are still around today. Big John Tate had a very positive impact on young people in our community and inspired them to go into boxing as well. Former Mayor Randy Tyree actually gave Big John Tate the keys to the city on June 6th, and that's why we want to have this, if it is approved, to have a celebration and commemoration, also an exhibit at the Beck Cultural Exchange Center, inviting former Mayor Tyree to come again and help do the unveiling. And so I want to, if you would indulge me, to allow this young man to have a few moments as well to speak about why it was important for him to do this as well, this documentary.
How y'all doing?
Good. Would you state your name and address for the record?
Absolutely. My name is William Winnett. I live at 6315 Bright Star Way, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37912. I have notes, sorry.
Go ahead.
But yes, like Mrs. McKenzie said, I grew up in Knoxville, lived here, East Tennessee, my entire life. Proud graduate of Austin East High School, and I am a photojournalist. I have the privilege to have the platform to be able to tell the stories in East Tennessee that matter most to me. And one of those stories was Big John Tate. I've been a lifelong boxing fan. One of my earliest memories is dancing to Eye of the Tiger and Rocky III around my living room as a child. And as a child, my mom also introduced me to the world heavyweight champion from Knoxville, Big John Tate. He lived an amazing life. He grew up illiterate. He couldn't read, he couldn't write. He signed his first boxing contract with an X. He came to Knoxville with Ace Miller, his trainer's advice, and said, "I'll make you heavyweight champion." He came here and got a job as a garbage man. And then right after that, he went on to win the bronze medal in the 1976 Olympics. 3 years later, he was in Pretoria, South Africa during apartheid, and he won the heavyweight championship in the stadium there, and it was desegregated for the first time for that fight. After he won the heavyweight championship, Knoxville embraced him. I believe it was Robert Booker said Big John Tate was the biggest thing to come out of Knoxville until the World's Fair in 1982. Unfortunately, he lost the heavyweight championship in his next fight in Knoxville, and that's when, I guess Knoxville forgot about Big John Tate, is after he lost. his life was a roller coaster. He won the heavyweight championship, something less than 100 men have done, and then, spiraled into addiction and homelessness and things like that. But his story is a very human story. We're all flawed. No one's perfect. And Big John Tate was far from perfect, but he did some amazing things here in Knoxville. So given the platform that I have, I wanted to tell his documentary, tell his story. And it was titled Knoxville's Forgotten Champion because, I would talk to people about, do you know who John Tate is? And no one could answer me. And I've been doing videography for 15 years. And at the end of this project, I never done this before, but I told myself that I had done my absolute best. And I never said that to myself before. And if John Tate can inspire me to do my best and be my best and give my absolute best, then I know he can inspire others through his story. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Renette. Thank you, Councilwoman McKenzie. Thank you for being here. I had the honor of watching your work, so thank you for sharing that with me. And I'm able to talk about Mr. Tate better now as a result. I do think I would want to mention that the original application was amended. I think you all may have seen that in your packet, but originally it was requested that the street be named Big John Tate Boulevard, but has been amended to be Big John Tate Corner. So I just wanted to draw everybody's attention to that. And with that, I'll open the floor for discussion among the committee. Does anybody have any questions or discussion?
I do. I have a question. When you say, I'm looking at the map, are you talking about just that corner or the street that's Lakeside going up to where the boxing arena is? Which
Yeah.
part?
Yeah, the streets behind the boxing gym, Lakeside Street
So
there for
all the way
Magnolia
up through
Bank.
that way?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that would be a corner. Okay, because when you said corner, it kind of confused me versus a boulevard or street. So when you say corner, that confused me. Okay, so that's the whole Lakeside Street going up behind it?
Yes. We went with corner because of its relation to boxing and things
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And might I add, thank you to Mr. Johnson for coming up with corner for us.
Ms. Kupfer also assisted with that.
Thank you.
Trying to think of a boxing term.
Team effort.
Thank you.
See what you did there. And just one follow-up, Councilwoman McKenzie, you mentioned there's an event on June 6th. Can you restate that a little bit?
Yes, there'll actually be an unveiling on June the 6th, which was the date that he was awarded the key to the city under former Mayor Randy Tyree. You all are invited to please be there. I think it's going to start around 4 o'clock. And if I'm not mistaken, I think WBR will be doing a live streaming from Golden Gloves that day as well.
Thank you. And one of the reasons we added to this meeting was that so that the city has time to build the sign and have it ready for that event. So no pressure for the committee, but I don't want us to kick this down the road anymore.
Is there any significance to the fact that it's an honorary title instead of just changing the name of Lakeside or something?
Mr. Johnson, do you want to weigh in on that? Yeah.
So this committee has no role in the naming of a street or changing the official name of a street. You can entertain applications to add an honorary name to the street. The process to change the actual name of the street involves the Planning Commission and City Council only.
So then how is it displayed actually out on the street? You mentioned that there was a sign or something that was going to be made. Like what would we actually see in place?
Do you want to describe the sign?
It would be an additional sign to the street sign. It would be above or below in a different color to set it apart from the typical green street sign that we would see.
Yeah. Not replacing the existing one, just supplemental to it.
Thank you for educating the committee member.
All right, any other discussion? All right,
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, and congratulations. Thank you for bringing this to the community.
Thank you so much.
Okay, item 5. Mr. Johnson, do you want to read this?
This is a discussion item for the review of the committee's operating procedures including identifying additional criteria, proposing and evaluating applications for namings.
Okay, so if you'll draw your attention to pages 13, 14, and 15 in your packet, there's been suggestions made by members of the committee, and I believe, Mr. Johnson, you may have added one or two. But we had a discussion in our previous meeting around context or history or information from the neighborhood or business owners around, and what would be helpful to potentially add to the application, either formally or just supplemental information that gets attached to it. And just as another reference, if you'll go back to page 9 or page 3 in your packet, you'll see the example application, which includes the name of the facility, the location, the reason, and any other context that wants to be added. So that's really it for someone to submit an application. They have to pay a fee, and Mr. Johnson gives it a good look over, as do I, to see if it qualifies and meets the merits of our policies. Those policies are not in here, but those are more around qualifying what can be renamed, what type of significance is required, is the person that's being honored deceased or alive. So those operating policies kind of are independent of this. But I think it was a good suggestion by some members of the committee to either formally or informally require, we can either formally add some of these requirements to our operating procedures, or we can simply informally request them after an application has been filed. So if you look again at page 13, you'll see some of the suggestions that have been made. Maybe I'll just read these here for the record. Provide historical information or detailed explanation about why the name was proposed. Canvass petition residents abutting the property right-of-way for their opinion of the proposed name. Seek input from area businesses. Potentially provide HOA or neighborhood meeting minutes. Proposed honorific name, desired location and extent, justification, brief history. Some of these are obviously duplicative. Bibliographic sources and copies of documentation. Staff has been instructed by Public Property Naming Committee to return applications that do not comply with the submittal instructions. So, and I think also on pages 14 and 15 is another example of the historical marker application that has some requirements in it. So I think the best thing to do would be for us to maybe go around now and see if anybody has any comments. If there are certain ideas that you like, certain ideas that you didn't have time to submit that you'd like to volunteer now, but which of these do you all think we should either make as a formal requirement or informal material? And then based on everybody's input today, we can draw up some language to amend our operating procedures.
The requirements or suggestions to canvass or to seek input from area businesses, I think both of those bits of information would be useful in determining, especially if you're dealing with a controversial naming. But the idea to put a canvassing requirement on somebody, I think might be a bit extreme. Would it be possible maybe to, just like if we're going to do a zoning change where you put up a sign, say, hey, there's a proposed, change, at this location, so that you can be notified to seek. If you feel strongly enough to input on it, then you can, the burden is on you to seek out rather than for the proponent to go out and gather signatures.
It's a good discussion. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, I know that's great for people that really read those type of things, but like when I asked for this, I was just making sure that the people in the community was aware
Yeah.
and agreed with that. But I don't have extensive that canvas or petition residents, but I think the residents should be involved enough to know what's going on and to approve it or have some kind of conversation about it. Because you might not see it on TV or even in the paper that this has been done.
Right, but what I'm talking about is like a sign, just like if you're going to change the zoning, they put those colorful signs out that say, hey, we're changing the sector plan or the one-year plan or something. That would just make it it would just make it still accessible, but also make a community awareness so that if you have input, then you could still gather it.
Like
Just a
the
thought.
yard sign that's placed on the property.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's actually on the property where it would be coming out. So, yeah.
He's talking about like when you put amendment signs out.
You're right.
Things like that for the community to
Yeah.
actually look at and they can refer to.
Right. So it would trigger questions of the adjacent neighbor or people that drive by. What is that? What's going on there? I think that's one of the benefits of those postages is that either a variance or rezoning kind of triggers people to pay attention. So I think that would be a good thing. It doesn't require anything of the passing neighbor other than to inquire about it.
Right, and it does make sure that the community is aware that changes are being, it's kind of maybe a middle ground between an active, seeking input versus just a new sign shows up one day and there was no notice of it whatsoever.
I wonder if it wouldn't be good to still encourage canvassing, because, I mean, that's valuable information to bring to the committee anyway, saying there is a neighborhood organization, there is a group of neighbors who agree.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to tell them not to do that.
Right. Right. Yeah, we could add. Go ahead, Mr. Berry.
Well, one of the things that I think that should be taken into consideration is, rezoning is typically on a private piece of property that has a defined lot boundary. When we're talking about right-of-way, particularly like bridges, flyover passes, is where would that be located and how is that going to be placed in a way where people can see it but it not conflict with traffic and movement along intersections?
I'm really glad you're here. Yeah, it's a very good point.
And then I had a thought, instead of the petition or the canvas, maybe you could just have a question, an additional question on the application. Have you spoken with the community about this proposed naming? Something to that effect.
So it makes them consciously think about it and is a strong suggestion for a stronger application.
Right.
Okay. That's a very good idea.
Can this application be done online and sent in?
It's available online and you can print it or complete it in the office. It's not, can't be submitted via the web or email.
Any other suggestions on here that, I like the providing the historical information. I think we just assume that's going to happen, but I think the more context people can add other than just 2 or 3 sentences, I think the better. So I don't know the best way to encourage that or require it, but I think more is better in every case.
Yeah, I provided Mr. Johnson the copy of the Tennessee Circle Commission sign application just as an example. It's probably a little more elaborate because you're trying to justify a lot of text, really, compared to just a name. More elaborate than you might actually need. But I mean,
Is there a certain
that
piece of
doesn't-
this that you really that really resonated with you?
I really, it does look obvious looking at the applications, like people try to write as much information as they can, and it doesn't even fit on the application. So, they can't fit their whole justification on the application, so it doesn't end up kind of being in the permanent record of what the decision was and what the application was meant to be, which I think is a nice idea.
Can you state that one more time, just closer to the mic?
If you could, that it's important to have the applicant have the ability and the space on the application to kind of give the full justification for the
Okay.
reasoning they have. And if they could give a couple citations, then that's obviously for the best, I think, because then that ends up in the kind of permanent record of the decision.
Mr. Neely, is there a resource available at the History Center for someone to come request documentation?
Yes.
I'm just thinking if we had other than call Jack, what would be the best way to guide every person consistently who has some personal relationship or knows about this story, maybe doesn't have a WBIR documentary, that they could go and say, I'm trying to apply for this, and I need to request any historical information that's decently available.
It's rather easy to look up almost anybody. In McClung Collection, they have biographical files. That's one paper way to do it. Of course, today, as of the last few years, there's newspapers.com and things like that you can get copious newspaper citations at home and just look things up if you have a subscription to it. And also the library website has access to everything since 1922, free to all the public if you have a library card.
And there's assistance there at the for the McClung Collection for someone to request help finding documentation?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and also at Lawson McGee Library. Yeah.
What does the committee think about adding that suggestion, or not necessarily a formal requirement, but have you checked with the History Center, McClung Collection, or any other source for, again, I think along your lines of the suggestion as a check mark, helps guide people.
I feel like what brought this on was the last meeting we had with the gentleman sort of informing us about the baseball. I didn't really know anything about that, and it was sort of a history lesson, but there wasn't really anywhere for him to put that other than standing,
Right.
speaking it rather than writing it. So it might help with us to decide more consistently that this is something that we want to approve or disapprove.
Okay.
Possibly including a space for dates, you know, this person resided in Knoxville between, you know, these 2 years, or was born here, or, you know, something more concrete.
Okay.
I think any of that information we can get in advance, in the advance copy that we look over. It just makes our questioning and committee time more effective.
Gives us a more variety of prospect on what they want to do it, who is it named after, and the briefing of the history makes it more thorough.
Okay. And does everybody generally like, so I have, you know, add a question or suggestion on the form around, have they checked with the History Center? Have they checked with businesses or residents that are adjacent to the property or around it? Well, I guess we already mentioned historical significance or information, dates. Is everybody generally okay? I think I heard add more space to the form so they can give kind of a full-throated explanation of why they feel compelled to propose this. Is everybody okay with adding those things with a single approach to the application form itself as opposed to amending our operating procedures or mandating anything? Is everybody generally okay with that? Okay, so low barrier of entry, but more detail when the application is formed. That's kind of what I'm hearing. Yeah? Okay. These are good ideas. Any other ideas or suggestions while we're all here, or at least most of us are here? If not, Mr. Johnson, maybe the next step could be that we work up a draft amended application and bring it forward to the next meeting for review and approval. That sound good? Okay. Does that sound agreeable by the committee? Yeah? I don't think we have to vote on this, do we? Very good.
We would vote on the application,
Right.
the revised application.
And we have, just before we adjourn, any other discussion on this? Good. Thank you for the original suggestion. Thank you for the collaboration. Everybody played a part in it today. We'll have to look about the signage postage options. Mr. Berry, thank you for bringing that up. I'm not sure how to do that, but we'll look into it. We did work with the city staff, the public events department to make sure that the committee is notified when a celebration of the street renaming, for example, Big John Tate Corner, Councilwoman McKenzie brought that up, but so that the committee can participate in the ribbon cutting or what have you. So from here, the process will be that the city will take on the approved, the city council will vote on this. After city council approves, that naming will be sent to the Signs and Markings Department, where those signs will be fabricated, and everybody will be notified of when the events will take place. So I want everybody here, if you want, to participate in that, so look out for those. That's it for our agenda today. Any other discussion? If not, we're adjourned, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Thanks.